showing me a lot of cases I've never heard of before, and this is one of them. This is an interesting one that revolves, or it happened in the San Diego, Southern California area, in Baja California, in Mexico, which they're very close. It's just a short drive, I would say, to go from one country to the next. But, and for those of you who don't know, or maybe live in another country that's in the western, the west coast of the United States. Now, it all started in San Diego, but this is one of those cases that you're like, okay, is this for real, or is this a Lifetime movie that is about love and sex and deceit and Russian spies working for the authorities here in the U.S.? It's a very kind of out there case, and I don't think I've ever covered anything like this before. But before I start with today's case, I want to say thank you to everyone over on Patreon. I appreciate everyone's support there. I love getting messages from you guys. I get excited every time I see a new name, that I'm all for the welcome banners and stuff. So thank you to everyone who has signed up recently. I appreciate it. And there are different tiers. One of them is just to support because you want to kind of give back, and I truly appreciate that. There's also this other tier where you get a video every 2 weeks, extra and exclusive. And then there's this other tier where you get one every week. So there's gonna be one of those this weekend, and it was requested as well, and kind of different, and it revolves around my favorite series on the channel, Mysteries from History. So if you feel like you want to support the channel, get back. I'll have the link to my Patreon down below. If you don't, if you can't, if it's not in the cards for you, thank you for being here today. And I would love for you to just leave a comment down below letting me know what you think about the case, or anything you want to tell me. I've been super good at replying to every comment recently in old videos, new videos, so just let me know you're there. And if you don't mind, just give this video a like so we can share it with more people. Now, let's talk about Rick Post. Now, this guy, he had a successful private investigator company. It was more than a PI. That's what I'm gonna say. And his company's name was IntelliSource, and he was not your typical PI again, because he didn't specialize like in the most typical cases, which could be like cheating husbands or wives, or that kind of more personal stuff. His cases were dangerous, and in some cases he would get death threats, and even they attempted, these dangerous people attempted to kidnap his son Ian from school more than once. And just so you have an idea of how dangerous his work was, Rick was also a confidential informant for the FBI. And he had this alias that he went by, Jim Green. He was part of the Heaven was also professional in what he did, so he deal with cases of murders, rapists, and even evil worshippers, like in this case. He was a married man for a while, and his family understood that he couldn't say much about his work, and that he kept this part of his life a secret for their own good and for the service of what he was doing. There are certain words that I can't say, or it'd be a whole huge problem here on YouTube. So now that you know how dangerous his work was, you also have to understand that he was a protective father and guy overall who happened to live a dangerous life. Eventually, his wife was so scared of this life and other things going on in their marriage that they ended up getting a divorce, and she kept the kids. They were in good terms. He would see his kids and everything, but I think that he almost agreed with the idea that they'd be safer with her. But then their son, Ian, turned 14 years old, and he decides to move back with Dad. He made a point to tell, Ian where he was going, where Rick was going, and basically his life was a bachelor change, I guess, when his son moved back home with him. They would have dinner together. There was some kind of expectation in the family, even though it was just the two of them. By August of 1998, Rick was seeing this lady, Kim Bailey. She was one of his best clients at the time, and they met because she hired him initially to investigate an employee theft in the company, and they ended up dating. Kim was a successful businesswoman, very independent, very strong-willed, and she was kind of managing her multi-million-dollar business. While Rick was a divorced father of 4, good-looking, deep blue eyes, charismatic and likable overall. He had good luck with ladies, and he had a dangerous life that he couldn't share with many people. Now, Kim had planned a trip to Baja California with him. It is a wonderful place to visit. Beautiful beaches, shops, restaurants, and nightlife. So she thought this would be the perfect place for a quick couples getaway. When she told Rick, he was excited to go. So on August 20th, 1998, and again, this is a short drive. Well, I don't know how super short. I mean, it's relative for each one of us, but it was within driving distance. So they got into Rick's car and they drove there. They crossed the border and they stayed there for today. Apparently, they were not going to spend the night. But the next day rolls around, and Ian, who is at this point 16 years old, receives a call from his dad's was going. But he never came, and Ian was starting to worry about him. So Ian calls his mom, and they've been through this before. He would disappear for a few days for work purposes. But it was concerning because he didn't say anything or left a note saying, I won't be here for a few days or weeks or whatever. He usually would say something like that without revealing too much information. But Ian and his mom were both unaware of the relationship he had with Kim Bailey, because Kim and Rick were keeping it a secret. Although I must say that Kim seemed a little bit obsessed over Rick, writing love letters, and I don't know, I guess it was the late 90s, maybe that was the thing to do. I was probably 15 at the time, so I don't remember this being part of the teenager kind of thing. But maybe that was completely normal, and I'm just assuming that she was a little bit obsessed. But I do know that she was more into Rick than Rick into her. And I also have to say that she was not like the young trophy girlfriend that a successful and good-looking Southern California stereotype kind of guy would have, okay? So that was not the case here. Ian was also working for his dad at the time, so he knew the employees, and he called Rick's partner, John Kruger. So John goes to his house, being a private investigator and kind of a big deal in what he did too. He went through the entire house, and he noticed that Rick didn't take any toiletries or luggage, which made it very odd, I guess, because he would take something. I mean, if he was going to be away for a few days, he would do something. But I thought I've done that before, kind of a spur of the moment trip, where I'm like, I'll buy a toothbrush once I get there, you know. It's not a big deal. And I'm pretty sure that Rick was not counting pennies, so it could have been a last-minute decision to stay wherever he went that day. Again, Ian and his mom don't know really, or didn't know at the time, that he went to Mexico with his secret girlfriend. 4 days later, John was checking the messages at the office, and he received one at midnight. And it was Rick. And he said something like, I'm gonna paraphrase here, I'm in Mexico, don't worry, I'll come home in a few days. When he played this to Ian and his mom, they were like, okay, that's not my typical dad. Something is wrong. Either it's been taken by somebody who wants ransom, or I don't know, something is up. So John sets up a meeting with Kim, the secret girlfriend, and Ian. Now, something I forgot to say, and it's kind of relevant, is that when the office called Ian to ask about Rick, Ian went outside and found his dad's car parked and the key in the mailbox. Okay, just keep that in mind. So they meet with Kim, who seems very worried because she said, well, we went to Mexico 4 days earlier, and we were at this restaurant, and these two guys came. I didn't know them, city. So I dropped him off at the airport and came straight back to San Diego in his car, parked it in front of the house, and put the keys in the mailbox. So mystery solved. The car was there because she took it. They reported Rick missing to the police, but because of the nature of his business, and the police didn't know at the time that he was an informant for the FBI, but just being a private, somebody is moving around, I'm sorry. But because of the nature of his job, it wasn't priority for them. So 4 months passed, okay? You would think that the FBI would have noticed that their informant is not reporting back to them. Maybe they weren't using him at the time, but okay, 4 months passed. And by now, Ian had to move out with his mom because there were no signs of Rick. Kim was still putting up posters with Rick's picture, and she was still, trying to look for him. Well, but one day, all of a sudden, I think this was in the month of December, the U.S. Attorney's Office receives a call from a lawyer saying that she had a client with information about a conspiracy in San Diego where somebody was kidnapped and murdered in Mexico. The district attorney, not the district attorney, the U.S. Attorney's Office decided to send this to the FBI. And after doing some extensive research, and every time I think of the FBI, I can think of, the Penelope from Criminal Minds, going over and clicking all the, really fast, and the computer, and they have like a list with names of 100 people, and they narrow it down to 1 or 3 or whatever. That was the case here because they put it, they kind of went through the database of people gone missing in San Diego in that time frame, and they put a bunch of filters, and the first name that popped up was Rick's. Just so you know, if you're not from here, the FBI takes over this kind of cases involving U.S. citizens, organized crime, and even cartels kind of thing, especially when it's near the border. And we all know that Baja is beautiful. I don't think anybody can say otherwise. But you have to know where to go there because there's a lot of violence and confrontations, and this is between gangs and organized crime and the police. So it can be a very dangerous place if you don't know where to go. And as far as the FBI knew at the time, a lot of people wanted to harm Rick. So they go through and again, he was an informant and whatever, collaborator, however you call that. So they go through the voicemail and agree that it's not a typical call to kind of reassure your family you're okay. It seemed like he was in distress. So John, Rick's partner, decided to stop cooperating, and when the FBI showed up at his door to ask him questions or to ask, to go somewhere with them, he said, "I'm gonna call my lawyer." So he calls his lawyer, and the lawyer said, "Let me talk to the agent." And when she talks to him, she said, "Well, wondering if this would be relevant, but John reported to authorities previously something fishy at Kim's company. So apparently he had the habit, or I don't know, I guess in both cases it's a good thing because he reported Kim's company at one point, and Kim's had this holistic medicine company, and she offered this, I'm gonna say it how I heard this, curing devices, not medically certified, okay? And there were some black boxes that she had for sale that, according to her and whatever research she had done on them, these black boxes would cure cancer. So she made millions of dollars by selling these boxes to cancer suffering patients, and they did not work. So this is what John reported to the authorities. Basically fraud, I guess. But that was before. And in John's defense, Kim was an interesting lady, to say the least. She was very paranoid, and she hated telephone calls. And at the time, I mean, late 90s, texting was not a thing, I should say. And she could use your typical landline phone, but she didn't like them. What she liked to do is to whisper into your ear instead of using a normal conversation or even a normal tone. So I think it was like some kind of I was gonna make a joke about being ASMR, but I think it was speaking to her paranoid kind of demeanor, or I don't even know how to put it, but she was paranoid. That's what that tells me. So the police knew this, and so they were like, okay, John is the informant, and now this lady is kind of fishy. Let me go talk to her. And she lived in a ranch, in a very expensive and very farm-like, lots of acres. She had a ranch there, and this is 45 minutes away from San Diego. They got to the house, but she's not there, and they found a couple who were leaving the house. And this couple is Bruce and Lana, who happened to be just employees of Kim, and Lana was more than that, almost like a friend and confidant to Kim. So they took them in, the FBI did, and she spilled the beans. She started talking and she wouldn't stop. She said that Kim took Rick to Baja with the plan of kidnapping him because he stole money from her, and because also he was cheating on her. But how did she know that he was stealing money from her, and how did she know that he was cheating on her? She had no proof of that, of neither of those two things. But apparently she had a little informant, and his name was John Kruger. By the way, Kruger, I feel for you. I think most of us, 80s kids associate that last name with nightmares. And in this case, this guy apparently was one of those nightmares for Rick. John was the one who told her that Rick was stealing from her and cheating in San Diego, and they come up with a plan. She was going to convince Rick to go to Mexico, and then stop at this it's not a convenience store, it's a drugstore. And she'd be like, I'll be right back, leave him outside. And that's where he was going to be waiting for him. And, take him in a different car. It was sad somewhere. And it kind of, I watched some parts of this documentary. Oh my gosh, spit it out. Documentary where they kind of insinuated that they pretended to be Mexican police. I don't know. I don't know how I guess it's possible. I don't know how things work there, but that I cannot confirm. I just read it somewhere and saw it somewhere, but it's not something consistent in every single article that I read. So they were taking him to an abandoned house, and they were gonna tie him, or they did tie him to a chair. And as this was happening, Kim decided to go there and kind of, I don't know, get revenge. She wanted to talk to him and ask, why were you stealing from me, and why were you cheating? Is it true? And he confessed on cheating, but he said that he never stole from her. And no matter how much he was tortured, they removed nails. I read somewhere that they pulled teeth. And this is all according to different accounts, but it was horrible. For what I read, well, she slapped him so hard that I don't know, something happened to his face. It was ridiculous. So they had a lot, because this is what Lana is telling the FBI. And before she leaves, she's like, oh, say hi to Nick for me. Now Nick is an FBI spatial, yeah, because he lives in the space. No, special agent. That's what I want to combine two words to make them into one. And his name is Nick McKean, which could be an alias for all I care. I'm sure the guy would like to keep his identity very safe. But, how did she know this guy? Well, let me unravel the second craziest part of the story. Her name was not only Lana. Lana was the short for Svetlana Ogorodnikova. Probably butchered that. Which was a famous Russian spy that went to prison for 9 years. And she was kind of big because she was also having an affair with an FBI agent, and his name, Nick McKean. So she was not only convicted for espionage, but she also seduced this FBI agent with, goodness gracious. I mean, she was a beautiful lady. I'm not taking that from her, but and I don't know what this guy looked like, because I'm sure our friend Nick would like to keep his life. And being an FBI agent is, very dangerous. So, great. I was gonna believe that somebody who went to jail for espionage is gonna come to court and tell the truth. Yeah, no, I was gonna believe her. That's not even a thing. So she explained to the agents in like the second part of the interview, when she got out of prison, she met her husband, or got married to Bruce, who knew Kim, and took Lana to her ranch. And person she was is that she had a certain abilities that not everyone has. Like, she had photographic memory. She spoke 16 languages, and she was always aware of her surroundings. So she was that kind of person that you can believe that not only listens or is hearing what you're saying, but she's also reading the signs of deception and our surroundings at the same time, and had a lot of experience dealing with criminals, I guess. So they say, this is great, but we need to hear it from Kim. So would you be, could you wear a wire? I mean, we just need to hear it from her to make sure we have a strong case. So Lana says, sure. And she goes back to the ranch, but Kim is not there. And she waited a few days because it would have been very obvious for her to call and try to get the deal done sooner rather than later. But after a few days, I think Kim called, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So they were like, okay, let's meet in Phoenix, I guess, at the airport. And this was apparently for business. But Kim was very paranoid. I mean, she's always been, and she's always like had a plan B with different IDs. And she would use her first name, and then in the other ID would use her middle name, and would use she would use different last names. I don't know how you can do that, but they were all legit driver's license or IDs from, I even saw 2 different states. So she knew that something could go wrong, and she knew that her business were not sparkling clean. They were just kind of fishy. Anyways, they meet in Phoenix, and they rent a car, and they all get in the car. Bruce, Lana, and Kim. They have agents following them and listening to everything that Lana and the others are talking. But Lana notices that Kim doesn't want to talk, and she keeps quiet for about an hour as they were driving. And props to her. I mean, apparently she's a pro. And I don't know what's up with me lately. I feel like I'm a little dyslexic, and I am kind of running through my words. I guess it's something. But it's fine. We're friends, right? So, Lana knew that she couldn't push it, and so she left Kim alone for an hour. They drove around until Kim says, Bruce, please pull over. And she gets out of the car with Lana. And Kim asks Lana if she knows somebody who apparently it was all about some tapes. And I'm not sure what she expected for Lana to do about that, but she asked for help because she believed that she was being taped. She was kind of hitting Rick while he was kidnapped. So Lana, being smart, she's like, okay, draw a picture of the house in the sand and give me the details. So Kim does it. She mentions the torturing, where he was sitting, and even said that Rick, the name Rick, and she mentioned that he continued to say that he never stole from her, but indeed he cheated. She also said that she wanted to keep him hostage forever, but Rick escaped 3 times. Well, because he saw their faces. And so, they had more than enough there, right? But then she comes up with this other twist, and she said, I need your help too, because I need to get rid of John Kruger, because I'm afraid that he's going to talk to the police. She was even talking about getting rid of children, so I'm not gonna get into that, but she was kind of a little into this saving her butt, I guess. So she asked Lana, do you know somebody who can do it for me? And Lana sets up this appointment in a hotel room with this Russian hitman, supposedly. But he was the agent, Nick McKean, and the FBI was next door, and they had the room that was wired. She wanted to, when Kim arrived, she decided to use a computer to type everything that she wanted to tell him and not, speak the words. But apparently the computer never turned on. So she decided to whisper into his ear, and knowing that that was what she used to do, they had a mic in his shoulder, so they had a very clear recording of her whispering into his ear. She said she wanted to make it look like an accident and left a payment of $10,000. At that point, the FBI had enough to indict and arrest Kim, Umberto, and John. And they did. And they found John trying to leave the country. He thought that he was smarter than anybody else, so he kind of changed a little bit of his appearance, and he removed his license plate so he wouldn't be caught in the cameras, or the scanner, I guess, for tolls and stuff. And they ended up finding him and arresting him. Then they arrested who they thought it was Umberto, but actually it was his brother. Eventually, the Mexican police captured Umberto. Umberto didn't want to be extradited. I mean, he wanted to stay in Mexico. And he fought to stay there for a while. It took 2 years, but John ended up pleading guilty and testified against Kim in order to get a reduced sentence. His motive, what do you think his motive was? He wanted to keep the entire company for himself. He felt like he was being underpaid. So he came up with the idea of lying to this paranoid girlfriend of Rick and telling her that Rick was stealing and cheating. I mean, she was already an odd person and paranoid, so it didn't take much to convince her. She didn't even need proof of that. So Kim, with the excuse of the money and getting some from, the ransom, that was the excuse, okay? And that's when she asked John if he knew somebody who could take care of Rick, and that's how Umberto came into play. We also learned during the trial that Umberto made Rick leave those messages at the office at night. And he also confessed to 5 days of torture before killing him. Again, John got a reduced sentence and right now is out, and he was on parole up until a few years ago. Don't know what that stands really. And Kim pled not guilty because of the kind of person she was. She believed that she was innocent was sentenced to 25 years in a prison in Texas. Now where's Rick, right? If people are pleading guilty, you assume that they will say where the body is. But nobody knows. He was either buried deep in the sand on one of the beaches nearby the house, or he was cut and dropped in different locations. Part of this documentary was a lot of different interviews with the son, and there's this interview where he says, like, I don't care where my dad is anymore. All I want is him to be at peace, and for the people that took his life to be in jail, paid for what they did. So very, I would say, I don't know, like a dangerous life that ended in such a horrible way by somebody who you'd never expect, because he could have been, killed during an operation, during an investigation, during something. And he ended up dying in the hands of his girlfriend. I don't know if he didn't see the signs. I don't know if he was okay with the idea that she was a little paranoid and odd. But it is definitely something that should be something to keep in mind, I guess, if you are dealing with somebody that, and I should say, no, it's not odd, but you know that that person is doing some stuff that it's not legal, and you know that that person is capable of doing terrible things. What is it going to stop them from doing those terrible things to you? And I guess greed really was the main reason for this, because it all started with John, the partner, the friend. The reason of fear of not making enough money, fear of not being the person that you think you deserve to be, or being recognized as you think you deserve to be. Fear, the reason behind every single, case that I've covered this far is fear or something, fear of being stuck with a person, not being able to go through a divorce, fear of losing that person to somebody else, fear of being poor or losing your money. And so apparently fear is very, very powerful. And again, I mentioned this before, I've come to conclusions on some things after years of covering these cases that make sense in my mind but are not scientifically proven, I guess. And one of them, my theory, is there's fear of something. It doesn't matter if it's a serial killer. It doesn't matter if it's just somebody who did it in this kind of heat of the moment, manslaughter, whatever it is fear of something. And how terrible is to learn that fear can use us, really, or use people to do terrible things. And I guess fear does that to you. Like, you'd say something mean to somebody you really love because you're afraid of this or that. But it kind of reveals a dark side of humanity, if you can even call it humanity. Anyways, that's gonna be the theme of another video that I'm planning for you guys soon. So I appreciate you coming here. I've been is way worse than fantasy. I hope you have a good night. Thanks for being here, and I'll catch you guys